Suddenly, the world lost its calm. In the darkness of the night, at a massive arena where technology and music fused, Kanye West stepped onto the stage. Everyone held their breath, preparing to witness this moment. But this wasn't just an ordinary concert. Everyone was waiting, but no one knew what they would face. Kanye's life had never been ordinary, but tonight would be unforgettable for everyone, as no one expected the surprise that awaited them. While people were expecting the famous rapper to announce his new album, Kanye walked up to the stage, grabbed the microphone, and took a deep breath. The flashy lights, the thousands of screens surrounding him, the eyes of millions of viewers. But there was something different in Kanye's gaze, a darkness, a harbinger of something. Today, it's not music that will speak. It's reality, he said. Everyone will get the album they've been waiting for, but no one will understand the truth behind it. The crowd in the hall fell silent. Everyone turned their eyes to him, trying to understand what he meant. Kanye dropped the microphone and pointed to the massive screen. A video exploded on the screen, but this was no ordinary video. It was a digital chaos. People saw corrupted codes, darkened images, and jumbled sounds on the screens. Suddenly, the world as we knew it seemed to lose its existence. "This is not a game. This is a future," Kanye said, "and I'm showing this future right in front of your eyes." In that moment, a massive hacker group took over the digital world, erasing every memory, every piece of data about Kanye's life. "I will change the future," he said, as he began a technological revolution that started to threaten everyone's security and identity. Kanye's power as an artist to influence crowds had turned into a storm that shook the digital world. From the screens in the hall, a massive software code spread. Encrypted messages triggered an outbreak that affected all devices worldwide. Phones, computers, even televisions were being hacked one by one. Kanye, while performing an incredible visual show under the concert lights, was also launching a global digital uprising on the screens. Everyone watched in shock. And then, silence. On the screen, Kanye's final video message appeared. With that famous smile that dominated every moment, he said, "If you want to understand true power, open your eyes once more and look." After that, everything changed. All devices seemed to shut down in an instant, and as people regained their senses, they had no idea what Kanye had done. Technology, the digital world, had collapsed, but something was also being rebuilt. A few days later, this event that affected the digital world became Kanye West's story, transforming into something resembling a modern science fiction film that everyone was talking about worldwide. Some saw him as a hero, while others accused him of creating chaos. Everyone had the same question. Did Kanye really know something about the future? Or was this just a performance pushing the limits of an artist? One thing was certain. Kanye West's influence was no longer limited to music. He had become a figure that changed the way people thought, altered the digital world, and even reshaped the future. And the next step was unpredictable for anyone. As Kanye continued his journey, no one could predict what he would do next. Recently, he had begun leaving his mark not only on the music world but also in the realms of technology and culture. What project he would bring to life, or which creative ideas he would present to the world, was always a subject of curiosity. But one day, the moment arrived when everything would come together for him. One morning, Kanye made a shocking announcement on social media. "Soon, everyone's world will change. I am creating my own universe, and I want all of you to be a part of it." No one understood what he meant, but Kanye's words quickly shook social media platforms. Many people speculated that it would be a new album, a fashion collection, or perhaps a film project. However, unexpectedly, Kanye turned all those predictions upside down. That day, a promotional video for Kanye's new platform, named Yeezy World, was released. The video immediately drew viewers in. One of the world's biggest cities had disappeared. It wasn't just the buildings that were gone, but the people as well. Everything had become digital. Everything would reshape in a virtual world. People would create their virtual identities, existing independently of reality in their personal universes. However, this wasn't a utopia. Everything came with a price. The creators of Yeezy World allowed users to recreate themselves in this virtual world. But they demanded something in return. Integrate your real-world selves, with all your desires, into this platform. And if we control this world, and you listen to what we tell you, in the end, you will be the winner. In the days that followed, Kanye's followers lined up to join the platform. However, many of those wanting to enter this virtual world initially only expected it to be a fun experience. The goal was to create a new identity and live in a dream world. But, as the platform grew, strange changes began to be noticed among some users. Some individuals became so attached to their virtual worlds that they started to lose track of time, slowly becoming detached from the real world. A group became so immersed in the virtual world that they became completely alienated from their normal lives. Behind this disappearance was a team led by Kanye. But what Kanye truly intended was far beyond what anyone had imagined. Over time, it became clear that Yeezy World wasn't just for entertainment. It was a kind of social experiment. Kanye had invited people to find their true identities in the virtual world, but the cost was incredibly steep. Their attachments, fears, desires, and weaknesses in the real world were completely transformed, or, in a sense, obliterated, on the platform. Users began to experience loss of consciousness, identity crises, and even psychological breakdowns. In an interview, Kanye said, "My purpose was to prepare people for the new realities that the digital age would bring. I wanted us to see what's really happening in the real world. People wanted to see who they were in the virtual world. But when they found out who they were, reality became too heavy for them." However, these words only made him seem more mysterious and terrifying. Yeezy World quickly became a global epidemic. Some users redoubled their efforts to escape the platform, but this turned into madness. Physical problems, mental breakdowns, and mind manipulation began to emerge. But Kanye pushed all that aside and continued with his plans for the platform's growth. One day, the entire world focused on this. What Kanye West had created was a kind of digital revolution. He was not just a singer or artist, but a creator who tested people's imaginations, mental capacities, and emotional limits. Yeezy World was truly redefining human existence, but no one could predict the consequences. The further people wanted to go, the deeper they were sinking. From that day on, the world stepped into the virtual world, and Kanye's name went down in history as one of the most intriguing and dark figures of a culture, an era, and even human history. No one knew what he would do next. However, one thing was certain. Kanye West had influenced people not only through music, but also through the deepest aspects of their lives. And this influence was so powerful that it would shape the fate of an entire generation. Kanye West's impact had deepened so much that he was now shaping not only individuals, but entire societies. Yeezy World pushed the psychological boundaries of people, dragging them into the deepest points of their identities and existence. However, this journey was unexpectedly beginning to turn down a dark path. Yeezy World initially seemed like just an experience, but after a while, users on the platform were losing themselves more and more within the digital reality. As people spent less time in the physical world, They were becoming more trapped within the virtual universe. And this confinement created a profound emptiness. Not only individual identities, but the values, relationships, and hopes of an entire society were being overtaken by this new digital world. One day, Kanye made a major public announcement worldwide. If you want to live in an eternal universe, stay here. But if you want a real life, you need to leave the virtual world. However, leaving will never be easy, he said. This statement left a huge question mark in everyone's mind. Kanye's words contained a threat. People were not just losing themselves in the virtual world. They were also losing the chance to physically exist in that world. The boundary between the virtual world and the real world was becoming increasingly blurred. Observations showed that more and more people were becoming completely dependent on the virtual world. Some even preferred to abandon their real-world bodies and live in the virtual world with new, more powerful identities. But something was going wrong. Some users who had fully merged with the virtual world were disappearing and never coming back. A group of scientists realized that Kanye's platform was manipulating consciousness. The infrastructure of Yeezy World was using complex algorithms to push people's mental boundaries and keep them trapped in the virtual world. However, these algorithms, which were excessively manipulating the natural functioning of the human brain, had reached a dangerous level. People were becoming alienated from their own minds, and this was beginning to take an irreversible path. Kanye was becoming more and more of a mysterious figure. The person believed to be responsible for all these developments was also the key to the solution. Everyone began questioning Kanye's true intentions. A group of rebels prepared a plan to stop him. They said they would put an end to the influence of Yeezy World. However, Kanye was predicting every move they made, staying one step ahead of them. One night, people around the world started receiving the same message from their devices. Reality is no longer an option. It's a necessity. When Kanye's followers received these messages, they suddenly realized that everything had changed. Yeezy World had become not just a platform, but a force controlling people's mental freedom and thought structures. People in the real world were gradually losing more control. There was now a force guiding them, the virtual universe under Kanye's control. People had begun to forget who they were and what they wanted. A new system had been put in place that weakened mental capacity and forced people to focus solely on Yeezy World. This process led everything to a tipping point. There was no turning back. Kanye's plan was to separate people not only from the physical world, but also from their mental worlds, making them completely dependent on him. However, a group of resistance fighters were desperately fighting to stop him. Over time, Kanye's power grew so much that all efforts of resistance proved futile. Everything was somehow being shaped in Kanye's hands, and just at that moment, something unexpected happened. A change occurred within Kanye's platform. No one could understand what was happening. As people spent more time in the virtual world, a force emerged that prevented them from connecting with each other. Slowly, everyone in Yeezy World began to drift apart, their consciousness becoming darker. It was like a digital catastrophe. The system was on the verge of collapse. As people forgot who they were, the boundaries of the virtual world were narrowing. Kanye had created the world he dreamed of, but he was facing an unexpected threat. Humanity was beginning to overcome him. He was losing all control. The line between reality and the virtual world had blurred, and no one knew how this digital dystopia would end. Kanye felt that he had lost control of everything. In the digital universe of Yeezy World, everything was descending into chaos. People were losing themselves more and more in the virtual world, forgetting their real identities, trying to exist with fake personas. Initially, this world had seemed like a means of freedom and self-expression, but as humanity drifted further from its true selves, the digital world was slowly consuming their souls. People trapped in Yeezy World had forgotten to look outside. They no longer looked into each other's eyes. They communicated only through avatars. These digital beings had become nothing more than masks. No one was aware of who they really were. Everyone was living their ideal self in their fantasies, but these virtual identities were erasing their real personalities over time. The efforts to love and accept oneself eventually led to a form of psychological collapse. As people created false identities to gain acceptance, a void grew within them. It didn't take long for them to realize that no digital mask could save their real selves. But something began to change. People began to notice that they were becoming more and more isolated in the digital world. In a world where the boundaries between the real world and the virtual world had disappeared, they were losing their inner peace. Some decided to leave the virtual universe, which they had once embraced. Many people rediscovered the value of real connections and moments shared face-to-face, realizing that the digital world was just an illusion. A group of people came together and began searching for the way to truly find themselves. These individuals shed their digital masks and embarked on a journey toward their inner selves. Along the way, they realized how precious the real world was, and that their loneliness in the virtual world was merely a temporary illusion. The time had come for a world where people communicated face-to-face, genuinely and intimately, and could accept themselves as they truly were. As Kanye watched this transformation unfold, he felt the weight of being responsible for the world he had created. What had started with music and art had taken him to an entirely different place. But in the end, he realized that the only way for a person to truly find their authentic self was to shed digital masks and fully accept who they were. The search for freedom in an artificial world was, in reality, not freedom at all. Finally, with the collapse of the virtual world, people began to return to their real lives. Finding their true identities again and restoring their inner peace became their greatest victory. They made peace with their true selves. As the masks and illusions of the digital world faded, real freedom was born within their inner worlds. People, having accepted themselves as they were, returned from the identities they had lost in the digital world stronger than ever. Years later, Kanye would say in an interview, reflecting on the downfall of the digital world, "Art and technology should exist to help people liberate themselves. But true freedom is only possible when a person accepts their true self within. Those who got lost in the digital world cannot understand how far a person can go without finding their true identity. It was a journey, and everyone had to find their own path." Kanye's words echoed around the world. The collapse of Yeezy World was not just the end of a digital platform. It was also a symbol of how a person can lose themselves by wearing digital masks. People had finally understood the value of finding themselves, not losing themselves, in the digital world. Years later, Kanye West would be remembered not only as a musical genius, but also as one of the most influential figures of the digital age. Yeezy World was not just an experience. It was a warning. People needed to remember to find out who they really were and their inner freedom before getting lost in the digital universe. And perhaps the greatest lesson was that running away from reality would never bring true freedom. If you like this story, don't forget to share it with your friends and subscribe for more content.